I want to thank you all so much for logging on and joining us this afternoon and joining us for our first ever Miracle Meetup. Hoping this is finding you all healthy and safe during this time, and just really appreciate that a little bit of time away from your afternoon to join us and learn a little bit more about the Children's Hospital. My name is Kate Richardson. I'm one of the philanthropy managers for the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital. And I'm joined by my co-host today is my colleague and fellow philanthropy manager for the Children's Hospital, Rachel Cadle. Before we dive into our short presentation this afternoon, just a few quick housekeeping items. The first is that we've placed everybody on mute so that when you logged on, you were automatically on mute, just to be able to reduce the background noise a little bit and ensure that you're able to hear our presenters clearly. We certainly want you guys to ask questions during the presentation. So because we'll have a large number of people logged on at once, just feel free to use the chat box to type in any questions that come up for our presenters during this time, and we will make sure to get to those questions as best as possible a little bit towards the end of the presentation, just to give our guests an opportunity to answer some of the questions we have lined up for them, and then we'll touch on your questions as well. So don't be shy, feel free to type those into the chat box. And then just one quick recommendation, since there's many of us on the call, in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can select speaker view, and that will allow you to see the person who's speaking front and center, rather than the whole gallery group at once. But it's also a matter of your personal preference as well. So I see we have a few more people joining us. This is great. It's so nice to see so many people logging on this afternoon. So just to dive in here, obviously a very challenging time for everybody right now, but one of the silver linings, I guess, we're seeing during this crisis is that we've been inspired to think a little bit more creatively about how to connect with our donors and our supporters of the Children's Hospital. And that's where this idea came from, to host some virtual Q&A sessions and invite our donors and supporters to log on with us and learn a little bit more about what the money that you donate allows us to do for the patients at the hospital. So our goal is to feature a couple of the programs that are funded by philanthropy over the next couple of weeks, so that you can log on, you can ask questions, and you can learn a little bit more about where your contributions are going and how they're helping our kids. So we're really excited to be able to introduce you to some of these programs. As you know, this afternoon, we're going to be highlighting our Child Life program at the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital and the Maine Children's Cancer Program, and sharing the ways that the program benefits the families in our care. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, you'll also have the opportunity to learn more about our hospital-based teacher, Abby Snyder, as well as the therapy dog program at the hospital. So today we're really grateful to have Jamie Mccaffrey and Rachel Crisco, two of our child life specialists from the Children's Hospital, joining us to share more about the role that they play in the Children's Hospital experience. After we've learned a little bit more about the Child Life program, we're going to introduce you to our young friend and special guest, Miki, who's a current of the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital and Maine Children's Cancer Program. Miki is going to join us from her hospital room today and talk to us a little bit more about how the Child Life program has had an impact on her time at the hospital. So we're really excited to have these three presenters with us today to share a little bit more about how you're helping us and our kids. So without further adu, I'm going to unmute our Child Life specialists and allow them to introduce themselves. Let's see, here we go. You see Jamie, and there we go. Okay, so we're going to do this a little Q&A style. So to get started, I'm going to ask Jamie and Rachel both to just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about how long you've been a child life specialist, and then any areas in particular that you focus on at during your time at the hospital.
I'm Jamie Mccaffrey. I have been here at Barbara Bush for 7 years, on and off, but it's 7 years total. And I cover Maine Children's Cancer Program. I am the primary child life specialist for all inpatient main children's cancer program patients, as well as cover some of the inpatient unit as well.
Thank you. How about you, Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel. I am one of the 2 emergency department child life specialists. I've been here for about 3 years. Before that, I was at University of Chicago Comer Children's before joining this team.
So a lot of our guests, I would imagine, I know personally when I started working at the hospital, I knew nothing about the Child Life program. I didn't even know it existed. So for anybody that's logged on today that might be learning about the Child Life program for the very first time, can you give us an overview of what the role of a Child Life specialist is, and maybe touch a little bit on what the educational background of a Child Life specialist is?
Sure. The child life profession exists to promote optimal development in infants, children, youth, and families, and to minimize trauma in families facing a broad range of challenging experience, specifically hospital experiences and healthcare. But child life can also work in police centers, adoption, they do disaster relief, as well as private practice. So it can look a little bit different depending on this unit, and we can talk a little bit more about that towards the end. All child life specialists have to have at least a bachelor's in child life or a related field, typically family studies, child development, or education. After you complete your master's or bachelor's degree, you have to sit for a 600-hour internship under a child life specialist in a hospital. So during that internship, you have a range of experiences. You typically are seen in outpatient setting as well as inpatient, so you can get a wide variety of education, but also determine what specialty you'll be interested in. After your internship is completed and you have passed, then you sit for a national accreditation exam, and then you're certified. For the next 5 years, you have to keep up with your professional development hours in order to maintain your certification. We don't specialize in particular units so that we can go between them, but typically once you find a unit that you like or that works well for you, people tend to stay there.
So can you explain which units in the hospital are supported by the Child Life program?
Sure. Ashley and I are the 2 emergency department child life specialists. So between the 2 of us, we typically cover 7 nights a week in the ER. So any pediatric patient coming in to the emergency room would see one of us. We have Jamie, who is our oncology and hematology child life specialist upstairs. We have Bethany, who is our general inpatient. So she sees all the other patients on Barbara Bush. And then we have Kara, who covers PICU and NICU. In addition to that, we see children of adult patients on a consult basis. So it might be an adult in SKU or another unit whose children have questions about what is happening with their parent or adult in their life. And we typically see them and help to explain the hospital visit for these children.
Mm-hmm. So would it be fair to say that basically anywhere a child is being treated, anywhere inside of Maine Medical Center, the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital, Maine Children's Cancer Program has access to child life support?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. That's great.
And see us everywhere.
That's great. And then to your knowledge, is this something that is common practice at children's hospitals across the country to have a program?
Yes, you can find it in pretty much any hospital across the country for children.
And then can you explain, so the 2 of you are in different areas of the hospital. So Rachel, you're in the emergency department, and Jamie, you focus primarily on oncology and hematology. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between what child life looks like in the emergency department versus the inpatient unit of the children's hospital?
Yeah, I think that our units are pretty different in the sense of, for inpatient, we tend to have a lot of time to build rapport with our patients and families. And we're able to kind of have some time to build relationships and have more time to prepare them for any procedures or tests they're going to have. Where the emergency department, Rachel is usually going to go in, meet the family, and prepare the child for the procedure right off the bat. So we have long-term goals on the inpatient unit, and we're able to follow through the patients on a daily basis, where Rachel is kind of minute to minute building those relationships.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, but it sounds like a big part of your role, no matter which area of the hospital you're in, is seeing patients cope with the experience that they're having at the hospital, and providing some tools for distraction, trying to normalize the hospital experience for them a little bit. Can you share some examples of different distraction techniques or tools that you use when you work with your patients to assist them through their procedures or difficult times that they're having?
Sure. In terms of distraction for procedural support or anything like that, we tend to use things like I Spy books, or use an iPad that has various games or movies on it that will keep a child distracted for a long period of time. In terms of treatment or prep for things, we have a lot of prep books or books that prepare kids for step-by-step of what's about to happen, whether it is treatment or it's for imaging, like an MRI or CT scan. For Miki, she has a certain central line that for her, she really wanted to learn about flushing and all that. So we took one of her stuffed animals and put a central line right in her stuffed animal that she's able to practice flushing and doing dressing changes on.
Wow.
Yeah, down in the ER, our procedures are typically different than what they are upstairs for Jamie and the other inpatient girls. But we have similar techniques that we use for distraction and prep. For those of us who are not familiar with child life, we are not the ones doing medical procedures, making our role look a little bit more like social work, but we do have knowledge of medical diagnoses and procedures so that we can explain them to children. So this is one of my prep dolls. This is her cast that I can show kids the different layers. And this is her IV. So I might be showing kids all of the procedures that are going to happen on the doll.
That's great. I can imagine that takes some of the fear out of the patient a little bit, to have a sense going into it what they're going to experience, and what it's going to look like when it's done. So I'm sure some of the folks that are tuning in today are curious about, what the hospital experience is like right now for our patients and our staff, given the fact that we're in the middle of this, coronavirus crisis. Can you talk a little bit about how COVID-19 has impacted the way that your team is doing their job in the hospital right now?
Sure. Down in the emergency department, we have a COVID rollout section. So it is an isolated area where those patients are being seen. To minimize contacts, we are currently not going into those patient rooms as Child Life, but we are calling in or doing telehealth via FaceTime to provide support. This could look like preparing patients and families for procedures, using developmentally appropriate language just over the phone without quite meeting them, but also preparing them for what an admission to Barbara Bush might look like. We also have our a COVID prep book that we have for our patients. And it talks about what exactly COVID-19 is, ways that it's transmitted. You can't get it for doing anything wrong, but ways that you can help are washing your hands and staying apart from people. There's also a page about what staff is going to look like, which is one of the biggest things. You can see it. Staff looks really different. If you're in that particular unit, you're seeing staff in the full PAPR, whereas staff also looks like Jamie right now with a mask at all times, seeing patients. So preparing children for that they're still the faces that they might even know underneath, but we just look a little bit different to make sure that everyone is safe.
Well, I think that a lot of our donors and supporters are comforted by the fact that these services are still available to our patients despite everything that's going on right now. There's so many limitations with who can be entering the hospital, who can be entering hospital rooms, but to know that that our patients still have access to this important program. I think it's really great and comforting to know. I personally take comfort in that. So that's great to know. So if you had to speak to what your favorite part of being a child life specialist is, what would you say?
I think for me, I work with kids who have really scary diagnosis, and a lot of things change very suddenly. So I think for a lot of the kids I work with, port access, port is one of their central lines that a lot of our kids have. Port access is a really, really scary thing to tackle. And so being able to help them kind of work through the process and having them start off really fearful and scared and be able to work through that and eventually be able to conquer that fear and be really proud of yourself for that is the most rewarding part about it.
That is awesome.
For me, it's hopefully the idea that I helped the journey of being in the hospital, at least the initial part of it. I may not be able to help the outcome. A kid who comes and sees me in the emergency department is still going to have they came in with a broken leg, they're still going to have a broken leg. But potentially I helped their understanding of what happened, the procedures that they endured and why they were important, as well as helping the family to feel that their voices were heard, and that they understand that we were doing everything possible to help.
Thank you. That's, yeah, I can imagine that. They take great comfort in having you there in the emergency department, and probably for many families didn't know that they would have access to a resource like a child life specialist when they come in the doors with a probably pretty terrified child. So one more question for you at the moment. So I know a big part of your role is helping with therapeutic interventions and distraction techniques and tools like that, but you're also, the Child Life program also is responsible for providing a lot of the fun in the hospital during a child's stay. And we know that your team works really hard to make sure that the kids in the hospital are experiencing the same things in the hospital that they would be if they were at home. Visits from Santa Claus and carving pumpkins during Halloween and things like that. Can you speak a little bit about maybe one or two examples of your favorite things that you guys have been able to bring into the hospital to normalize that experience for kids?
Sure. I think one big thing is during the summer, a lot of kids get to experience summer camp. And for the kids that are here, they don't get that opportunity necessarily. So every August, we throw a huge camp week. And that week is full of every camp activity you can possibly think of. And we do everything from s'mores, campfire songs, to slime day, where kids get to make slime and then pick 2 staff members that they want to slime in a big event during the day. And that just really helps to make it feel exciting and fun, and everyone looks forward to that week, especially even staff. So that's a really fun thing we do. And it's not even necessarily the big things, but celebrating small things here, like birthdays are end of chemo celebrations.
Oh, that's amazing. I know that stopping over during camp week is one of my favorite times to visit the inpatient unit, because it is truly magical. So your team does an amazing job with that. All right, we're going to let you guys out of the hot seat for a minute. Just a quick reminder to everyone that's on that if you do have additional questions that you want to ask of our child life specialist, please don't hesitate to type those in the chat box, and we're going to check in with that in just a minute. But as I mentioned before, we're also joined this afternoon by our friend Miki, who can speak firsthand to the importance of the Child Life program. So we're going to do a little Q&A session with Miki, and you're also welcome to include your questions for her in the chat box. So hi, Miki.
Hi.
Thanks so much for allowing us to come into your hospital room and chat with you a little bit this afternoon. If you could just start by introducing yourselves, how old you are and where you're from.
So I'm Miki Castrucci, and I am 14 years old, and I live in Grammy.
And can you tell us a little bit about, so why are you at the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital? Tell us a little bit about your diagnosis, how it came about, what led up to it, and what your treatment plan looks like.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed on September 16th, 2019, and I am diagnosed with AML leukemia, and I started feeling lots of symptoms like bruising all over my body, and I would have like, my skin was like very pale, my face was very pale, and I was exhausted like all the time. I couldn't even make it through a dance class without like feeling entirely exhausted. And then when I started spiking really high fevers, we knew like something was not right with my body. So then I was admitted to Barbara Bush.
Sure, that was a very scary and difficult time for you.
Yeah.
And you've become close with Jamie and the Child Life staff during your time there. Talk a little bit about how the program has made a difference for you during your hospitalizations.
Yeah, definitely. When I was told that I was getting admitted here, I was not anyone that has ever stayed in the hospital. I was always just at like my regular doctor's appointments, and never in a million years I thought I would be admitted to a hospital and stay there for about 6 months. And having like a Child Life to pretty much describe everything that you're going to be going through definitely helps a lot with someone like me that has never been to a hospital and never gone under the procedures that I've had, like a bone marrow or MRIs or anything like that. Definitely helps.
And can you talk a little bit, so when Jamie visits your room, what do you guys do together? How do you guys spend time together in your room?
We do a lot. Like usually we like to play Mario Kart together. We're very competitive. We're like two sisters pretty much. Yeah, we're starting to make friendship bracelets. We always just like make the best of our time. Like if I'm ever in like a sad mood or not feeling the best, like when she comes in, it makes it like 10 times better. And yeah.
That is wonderful to hear. One more question for you. So when you finish your treatment, what are the things that you're most looking forward to getting back to when you get out of the hospital?
Definitely seeing my friends and going to school again and going to dance and just living life like how I was before is definitely something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping for that for you very soon. Thanks for taking some time to chat with us, Miki. So as donors of the Children's Hospital and Maine Children's Cancer Program, we have you to thank for the Child Life program that's offered to our young patients and their families. And so just in the past 5 years, community donations have continued to support this program in a variety of different ways. And the ways that we've allocated funds to support Child Life over these past few years include providing seed funding to help expand the program to other areas of the hospital. So we haven't always been able to offer it to every department across the medical center. And then things like purchasing iPads or Xboxes for patient rooms, purchasing construction paper and glitter and glue and kits to make friendship bracelets, Legos and board games and all that slime making ingredients that Jamie loves so much. Those things that are used by the Child Life team every single day to provide a welcome distraction for our patients. And then also helping to fund those bigger events like Camp Week, like Jamie had mentioned. Your donations help support all of those things, from the little things to the big things. And we simply couldn't do it. We couldn't offer these services without the support of the community. So I think if you speak to any family who's had a scary emergency department visit or a lengthy hospitalization, we hope that they'll tell you that they had an incredible medical care while they were here. It's also very likely that they'll tell you that they had an amazing Child Life specialist who changed that experience for them. So Jamie and Rachel, thanks so much for the incredible work that you guys do every day to support the kids who come through our doors. Miki, thank you for sharing your journey with us and the impact that the program has had on you. I think I speak for all of us in sending hugs your way. We hope you get out of there soon and back to normal life. At this time, I just want to check in really quickly with Rachel. Did you, any questions that came up in the chat box?
Yeah, I do have one that someone sent me privately, and it's about siblings. So one thing you guys didn't mention is working with the whole family. So can you talk a little bit about how you work with the siblings of patients that might be at BBCH?
Sure. I think this applies even more right now when siblings can't even come in to visit their brother or sister that's here. We do a lot of things like pet books for siblings. So just like we would prep any patient that's here for what they might see or feel or smell while they're here in the hospital, we do the same for siblings. So just exactly what is happening to their brother or sister while they're here, what it looks like while they're here, and kind of what their room may look like, what they may be experiencing. But on top of that, we want to normalize this experience for the sibling as well. So we may do therapeutic play sessions with the sibling when they're here, or anything that might help normalize this whole thing for the whole thing.
Great. Thank you. Another question that we had, you guys talked a little bit about Camp Week, which is also one of my favorite times. Can you talk a little bit about the holidays and what kind of special activities happen around the holiday season?
Sure. For every holiday, we try to make sure that we celebrate it here on the unit at least. So pretty much for almost every holiday, we try to provide a meal for families, but we also try to host events throughout that month or that week that would allow not only the patients to participate, but for their families to participate as well.
That's great. I think no one wants to be in the hospital during a holiday, but you try to make it as best as you can, which I think people really appreciate. Mickey's nodding. Yeah. Great. I think those were all the questions we got right now, unless anyone has one.
Well, if you do find that you have some burning questions after we log off today, I'm going to put a slide up as we wrap up the meeting that has our Get Involved email address. So you can certainly shoot us a question. We'd love to hear your feedback about this because, as I said, this is the first time that we're doing this and have a couple of more meetings scheduled in the next couple of weeks. But if it's something that continues to be well received, perhaps we'll continue coming up with more topics to share in the future. So if you have feedback or ideas on other meetings that we could host, we would certainly love to hear that. Also, just a reminder that next week's meetup will be just as fantastic and will feature our hospital-based teacher, Abby Snyder, who's on with us today, and another incredible young patient of the Children's Hospital. So we hope you'll join us. If you are not receiving the MCCP or Barbara Bush Children's Hospital e-newsletter, that's the easiest way to be notified of next week's meeting. As well as receive the link to participate. So you can certainly email getinvolved@mainmedical or mmc.org to receive that e-newsletter. I'll put that up on the slide now. So just shoot us an email if you're not on our e-news list and would like to be added. But if there's no other questions for today, thank you all so much for joining us. And we hope we'll see you logged on again with us next week. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot us a quick email. So thanks again, everyone.